Okay, so we're there. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Ada, lo hutru pasei biraot ela laorei regalim bilvad. So they say those pasei biraot that we've been discussing, which has the well inside and has the four corners, right? That's only for ole regel. Batanya lo hutru pasei biraot ela lagabe behema bilvad. Remember we were talking yesterday about the gamal that came to drink and the behema, right? So they said these pasei biraot are only to draw water out for the animal. My behema. So he says, oh, so what behema? Behema ole regalim. So this is the behema that you're bringing when you go up to Har Habayit. Aval adam. Okay, here it is. Aval adam mitapes ve'ole mitapes ve'ored. So if you want water, you have to climb down and take the water and then climb back up. So this is just so that you understand the way the well works. This is assuming, and we're going to see this in a minute, that the width of the well is that you could basically put one leg on each side and climb down and then climb up. And if you look in Rashi, I like this because every time there's a word in French that I understand, I feel good about myself. Mitapes, ochez v'yadav raglav b'kotalim v'nichnas v'yotzeh mitapes. Creeper, belaz. So you creep. V'ha amar Rav Yitzchak amar Rav Yehuda amar Shmuel lo hutru pasei birot elo be'er mayim chayim bilvad. So it's saying it's only for spring water. Ve'ila behema mali chayim mali chunasin. So what our behemas are so spoiled that they must have spring water, which is drinking water for humans. They could drink like rainwater, any water they gathered. Why mayim chayim? So this line here is a big discussion amongst Rishonim what it means, but it basically means it has to be fit for people. So why does it have to be fit for people? So one answer is that Rashi gives that because the mayim is basically making a mechitza, that it has to be, which is chashuv, it has to be fit for people. I think the Tosfot answer is more relating to drinking the water, and he says that this way, if there's leftover water, the person can drink it as well. And his second answer, which is even better, is basically when you draw the water out, you're drawing out enough water with the intention that the person is going to drink the leftovers. Like it will be mukhan from him. You're not giving it to the behemoth. It has to be ra'ui for the person to drink as the leftovers of the water for the animal. Gufa. Lo hutru pasei biraot ela lebehema bilvad. Aval adam mitapes ve'ole mitapes ve'yored. Okay, so we have that same sentence that the person is creeping up and down the well. But im hayu rechavin afilu la'adam nami. But if the well is too wide so that you can't get your legs on either side of the wall to creep up and down, then the pasei biraot would also be inclusive of the person, and the person can draw the water out and drink the water from that well. So it seems that practically speaking, the person would also be drawing water out for themselves.
Susan,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
This doesn't make sense to me because you had women, you had children, you had people who weren't superhuman, Superman that could crawl down a well, and it was dangerous. It was dangerous. If he slipped, he's in the well. That's it.
Right. I agree with you 1,000%. I saw only that. So I thought that this would be discussed more, to be honest with you. I was on the same page as you, Yehudit. I was like, we're all climbing down the well. Let's do our, wall climbing exercises now. Get ready for Ola Regel. But it seems in practical halacha, I think they were basically the worry. I guess when we read these things, what were they worried about? They worried that you would take the water and carry it out into Rishut Arabim. I'll show you a picture in a moment from yesterday that relates to what their worries, like as you said, the Hatzaga that Asaf did when he stood up and he showed us what was going on. They're worried that you're going to take this water into Rishut Arabim. So I think that the idea is that they're making you very aware that you should not do that. And that's why I think it says you have to creep, but if it's wide enough, if it's this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think they're like all these caveats where you will not have to creep down into the well. But I think that they're saying that so that you would be careful. That's my understanding, at least, that you would be careful with the water. And I think similarly, all of this, because this pasei biraot is really a heter, which, as Asaf said yesterday, it's these little corners, and we're only doing it for olei regel. We're only doing it, we're going to see later, for mitzvot. It's not, you can't always use it. It's this big heter that they're allowing, and they want you to be super careful with it. Okay, so that's why I understand.
ותמיד אפשר לעשות מחיצה. זאת אומרת, לא מונעים מהאדם לשאוב מים מהבאר. רק ההיתר של פסי ביראות ולא מחיצה מלאה, זה לבהמה.
Right, so, מסכימה 100%, וחשבתי, בגלל כל מה שקורה היום עם הקורונה ועם הוועד, ומה הוועד יכול להשתתף ומה לא, שהפסי ביראות זה שהלוועד לא היה מספיק כסף לבנות מחיצות.
אבל גם צריכים לחשוב שאנשים שהם עולה לרגל, אין להם אולי אפילו רשות לבנות שם. וזה הם באים לפני שבת, ומה הם יעשו?
נכון, אבל השאלה, האם העירייה יכול לבנות להם מחיצות? זה מה שאני חשבתי. כאילו, אנחנו מדברים...
סוזי, את בבד, אז תתחילי נו לבנות.
I'm going to put it on my list. Okay. Okay, so now we're up to the next point that we had discussed yesterday as well. V'lo yamale adam mayim v'yiten lifnei behemto, right? So we were saying yesterday, and that was whoever missed it, Asaf stood up and said, you can't basically fill up the pail and walk with the animal as the animal is drinking and you're not holding on to him, right? Because we're afraid that you're going to walk into Rishut Arabim. V'lo yamale adam mayim v'yiten lifnei behemto, ela memalehu v'shofech lifnei behema v'shotem eleh. So basically, you put it in, you take the water, and you put it into the trap so that the animal will drink from it. I'm going to show you a picture, which is not necessarily, it's a picture of what's coming up, but just so you get a visual of this. Here, so here is the picture of what's coming up. This is a trap, right? And here, you see this? Here is the well, here is the pasei biraot, here is the water, and you're filling it into the trap, which is coming up. The trap might also be within the pasei biraot in the case that we're discussing, but in a moment we're going to be discussing this case, okay? So I'll leave this picture until we finish the case. Okay. Okay. Matifla Rav Anan. Im kain maho ilu pasei biraot. If you can't carry the bucket, he's saying, what's the point of pasei biraot? Maho ilu. What do you mean maho ilu? You're allowed to take it out of the well and put it into the trap. That's what the point is. Limalot mehen kilo. That's what it is. So we don't really understand Rav Anan's question, so we're gonna define it. Ella maho il roshav ruba shel para. But why did we say yesterday that Roshav Ruba Shel HaPara has to be within the Pasei Biraot? If anyway, you're telling me that I cannot carry the water in the pail for the animal, and anyway, I have to put it into the trap. So what are these extra words teaching me? You just could have told me that what we said originally, that you cannot carry the water into while you're feeding the animal. Amarabai Hacham Maiskinan. What are we talking about? That's our picture. The walls are 10 tfachim high. The width is 4. And this trap comes into the pasei biraot, as we can see. Okay, so that is the case that we're talking about now. The way Rabbi Asaf explained it yesterday was that we were afraid that you were going to do some sort of tikkun to this trap, and we were afraid that you were going to take the water out of the Rishut HaYachid of the Pasei Biraot and into the Rishut HaRabim, which we see here. This part on the side is already Rishut HaRabim. Here it's like built in, so you probably would not, do that, but he had it as though it was something that we're, not fully built in, and that you would do a tikkun, and that's what we were worried about. Okay, so that's basically today was a review of a lot of what we learned yesterday, okay, and more defining it better. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next idea. Amar Rab Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Rab, Ein Borganin Bavel Velo Pasei Biraot B'chutz La'aretz. So I don't know if you remember from other times when we've learned the Borganin were these little huts where that were out in the field that a person would sit in and do shmirah over his field. And we measure the Alpayim Amah from the city from these Borganin, as long as the Borganin are within 70 3/4 Amah from the city. So basically it makes our city, the amount that we can walk outside of the city start from a further place. So it gives it our tchum, basically gives us a bigger tchum, okay? So in Bavel, there's no concept of these Borganin. Like we can't, even though they might have these types of huts, we cannot use them to extend our tchum. And we don't have pasei biraot. We don't have this idea that you can come and put these little corners around a well and then have your animals drink in chutz la'aretz. So let's explain that. Borganin Bavel lo d'shchiche vidki. The reason we don't have Borganin is because these huts were like the gazebos. I mean, they were not very sturdy. So therefore, they had floods there, and they would basically, be destroyed in the flood. Pasei biraot b'chutz la'aretz lo d'lo shchiche misifsa. Because there in chutz la'aretz you don't have large gatherings of limud Torah. So it's interesting. We started off today's daf saying that pasei biraot were only for Ola Regel, and Rashi extends it, as we see from the Gemara here, to mitivta, which is for doing a mitzvah for learning Torah. So we didn't have people in chutz la'aretz going from one center of learning Torah to another center of learning Torah on Shabbos, and therefore we don't have that kula to be able to use it. But we do have the opposite. We do have in chutz la'aretz, we can extend our tchum with the Borganin, and we do have that in Bavel that you can use pasei biraot. Okay. Ika da amri amar Rab Yirmiyah ba'ada amar Rab ein Borganin upasei biraot lo bebavel velo b'chutz la'aretz. So we have another statement. Way to say the statement of Rab Yirmiyah bar Abba in the name of Rab, that we don't have neither Borganin or pasei biraot, neither in Bavel and neither in chutz la'aretz. Borganin b'Bavel lo d'shchiche vidke. We don't have the Borganin in Bavel for the same reason, because they will float away with the floods. Chutz la'aretz nami lo d'shchiche ganave. So we don't have it in chutz la'aretz because we have thieves. Now it's unclear whether the thieves were going to steal the Borganin themselves, or whether the thieves were going to steal what was inside. And if you can't hang your hat in your house, it's not considered a safe place as a house, as a place that you reside, and therefore it's not counted to use the Borganin as an extension of your tchum. Pasei biraot b'Bavel lo d'shchiche maya. So pasei biraot Bavel has a lot of rivers and lakes and water all over the place. You don't need to have this heter of pasei biraot because your animals could be drinking everywhere. Chutz la'aretz nami lo d'lo shchiche mitivta. And also in chutz la'aretz not, because we don't have these centers of learning that people were walking to and from. So therefore, you didn't have this kula. Amalei Rav Chisda. Yeah.
So we're saying there is the mitivata thing, gatherings in Bavel. We're distinguishing that from the rest of the world where there aren't. Is that it?
That is it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Amalei Rav Chisda Lamari Berei de Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Imri. Okay, so now we're going to start off. We've been discussing Hilchot Eruvin, and now we're going into aggadata, but we're starting off with our Eruvin. Okay, and the case is Titu mi barnash Lebei Kenishta de Daniel, the Habi Klata Parse Bishabta, Amai Samchitu. So the question is, from the city of Barnash, people would walk to the synagogue that was of Daniel, and they would walk 3 parsaot. So 3 parsaot would be is equal to 4 mil, and a mil is alpayim amah. So that's your tchum Shabbos. So how are they walking all this extra on Shabbos? They're going out of their tchum. So what were they somech on? A borganin. Were they somech on these borganin, these huts? Now they're in Bavel, right? Ha-maravua davuha mishmei derav. Ain't borganin Bavel. You can't be somech on the borganin of Bavel. So there's somech on something else, and I didn't really see much on it, which I wish I had, even though like I looked in the notes, but they just like moved on. Navik v'achdele hanhu mitvata debaalan b'shiv'im ama b'shirayim. So they had these ruins at the edge of the city, and these ruins basically extended the city, and they were allowed to rely on these ruins as part of the city in order to extend their tchum another 70 2/3 amah. Why they were allowed to rely on ruins, I don't exactly know. It sounds like the ruins were sturdy, that they weren't, that they would not obviously blow away with the floods. But we didn't. There was no discussion like would people rob from the ruins. But it seems that these ruins were considered part of the city, the outskirts of the city. It extended their tchum, and therefore they were allowed to do their Eruv Tchumen and get to the Beit Knesset of Daniel. So now we're going to go. Now that we started talking about the Beit Knesset of Daniel, we're going and Mari. We're going to talk now. Mari Barmar. We're going to talk now about aggadata. Amar Rav Chisda Darish Mari Barmar. My dichtiv. So now here the Dorish pasuk. L'kol tichle ra'iti kate. So in Tehillim it says that David HaMelech says, for everything, for every purpose there is in this, this world, I've seen a case. I've seen like basically the beginning and the end. But your mitzvot are so broad and expansive. I don't see it's like it's never ending, right? He said this and he didn't explain. Amru Eov said this below Pirshu and he didn't explain. Amru Yechezkel below Pirshu. So then comes Zechariah and he explains this. So now we're going to see all the psukim that basically have this reference that of the expansiveness of Torah and mitzvos, and that was not explained, and how Zechariah explains it. Amru David below Pirshu dichtiv l'chol tichlera iti kate v'chava mitzvatecha ma'od. Okay, so that we explain that for every purpose he sees an end, and the width of the mitzvahs, the broadness of the mitzvahs, he doesn't see the end. Amru below Pirshu dichtiv aruka me'eretz midah. So it's the Torah is greater than the width and the length of the world. Yam, and it's more rachav than the yam. Amar Yechezkel below Pirshu dichtiv vayifrosh. I'm going to just actually read in the pasuk. Vayifros ota lifanai. So there was a scroll that was came out in front of Yechezkel, and Rashi says it's Torah sheba al peh. V'hi ktuva panim v'achor. It's written on both sides. V'katuv aleha, and what's written on it? Kinim, which is lamentations, right? Like kinot. V'haga, which is melody. V'hi, and which is woe. Okay, so now this is going to be explained. Kinim zo pranatan shel tzadikim ba'olam hazeh. So this is the punishment of tzadikim, tzadik v'ralo in this world. V'chein hu omer, and how do we know kinim is like that, saying lamentations? Because it says kina hi v'koneneha. So it is a lamentation, and they shall lament with it. Regarding the downfall of Mitzrayim in the hands of Bavel, it's said as lamentation, so we know that is what that's referring to. So melody, right, is the reward of the tzaddikim. Latid lavo, וכן היא אומר, עלי היגיון וכינור. That's what we say when we say in Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbos, right? And this is the melody that we play on the kinor. So we see that that's Matan Scharan Shel Tzadikim. V'hi, whoa, Zohi Anutan Shel Rishayim Latid Lavo. This is the punishment of the Rishayim in Olam Haba. V'chein hu omer, Haveh al Haveh Tavo. A calamity upon a calamity is going to come. Ad Sheba Zachariah ben Ido Pershu Dichtiv. And what does Zachariah explain to us about the expansiveness of Torah? V'yomer Elai Ma Ata Ro'eh. Omer Ani Ro'eh Megillah Afa. I see this folded Megillah that's flying. Aruka Asrim Ba'ama. Its length is 20 amma. V'rechava 10 ba'ama. And its width is 10 amma. V'chi pashtala. And when I open it, right, because it's folded, Hadila Isrin. The Isrin Viktiv. So when I open it, so then the width now becomes and the length are now equal. It's 20 by 20. So it's written on both sides, right? Viki kalafla kama hadyala. So now if you peel it apart, so you have both sides like next to each other instead of front to back, right? Arba'in besrin. So then it's 40. By 20, which is 800 square amma. Okay, and now here we're going to get to very mathematical aggadata. The contiue mimadai b'shalom mayim. Who can hold the water in the fist of his hands? V'shamayim b'zeret tachen. And the sky he holds in his zeret. So he's holding it between these two fingers, right? So now the whole world is within the width of Kadosh Baruch Hu's hand, and the width of his hand is chatzi amma al chatzi amma, because the width of your hand is half the length of your amma. I mean, I didn't measure it, but that's what they say. Nimtza kol ha'olam kulo achai mishloshet alafim umatayim b'Torah. So it comes out mathematically that the whole world is only a quarter of 3,200 amma, which is the Torah. So the Torah is basically only like what we see. We can keep learning Torah over and over again, and we can never learn all of it because it's so much more expansive within the world within we sit. And the note here also went on to explain that we have these different psukim that are supposed to like refer to pshat and drash, and hasecha v'hu ma'aseh b'reishit, like it's supposed to, which is sodot habriya, and derech kabbalah ma'aseh merkava, which is sodot ha'elokut. So that's why we have the reference to these different psukim, but this is beyond my full understanding, but just to sum up, that basically we can constantly keep learning Torah and only basically touch the tip of the iceberg. Hey.
And some of that theme is going to come up in my Amud also about the expansiveness of Torah and whatever it is. My entire Amud is all aggadata, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Well, not straightforward. It's actually, I don't always understand it, but it's quick. Rav Chisda darish Mari Barmar. So Rav Chisda said that Mari Barmar darshins. My dichtiv, what's the meaning of the following pasuk? Dinei shnei duda'im teinim moedim lifnei heichal Hashem, that there's two like pots of figs that are sort of set up and prepared before, the heichal of God. Hadud echad teinim tavot ma'od kiteinei habechorot. Basically, one pot has like excellent figs that are like ripe, that ripen quickly, and the other pot has like really awful figs that are hard, and you can't even eat them because they're so bad. And now they're going to explain what this nevuah from Yirmiyahu means. Te'inim hatovot elu tzadikim gmurim. So the good figs are the good people. Te'inim harot elu shim gmurim, and the bad figs are the bad people. V'shema tomar avad sivram ubatal sikuyam. And lest we think that about these rishaim, that's it, like all hope is gone for them, they have no chance of anything. Tamud lomar hadudaim natnu reach elu ve'elu atidim shitnu reach. So that we don't think that the rest of the pasuk says that both both pots give forth like good smell, showing that, you know, both the good pot and even the bad pot, like basically will give forth good smell. Like there's hope even for the Rishat, and that's how they interpret that pasuk. Yeah, they continue with another one. So Darish Rava. So Rava now explains about that same pasuk. My dichtiv haduz imnat nureach. How does Rava explain this pasuk about these pots of figs giving forth smell? Elu b'achorei Yisrael shalo ta'amu tamchet. He explains it as referring to whatever the young guys, whatever of Israel who have not yet sinned. And then the pasuk continues and says, "V'al pitachinu kol megadim," basically that at the doors are fine fruits. Elu b'not Yisrael shemagidot. That's the megadim magidot pitchehem. Again, comes v'al pitachinu kol megadim. So the b'not Yisrael shemagidot pitchehem leba'aleihen. They explain this as referring to the daughters of Israel who tell their husbands about their openings, meaning basically about when their nida or not, so their husbands know when they can or cannot be with them. Lashon acher she'ogdot pitcheim leva'aleim, that they like close up their openings to their husbands. Either, interestingly, in the recording I heard from Rabbi Leibowitz, who explained this also is referring to nida, like when they sort of like won't be with their husbands. But interestingly, the art scroll had actually explained it as not referring to nida, but as that they close up their openings for their, not to their husbands, but sort of for their husbands, that they sort of like don't sleep with other men. But either way, that's how they're explaining this pasuk. Chadashim gam yishanim dodi tzafanti lach. This is still a continuation of that same pasuk, where it then says, new ones and also old ones for you, my beloved, I have hidden away. Amra knesset Yisrael lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So basically, you know, when they shall say to God, Ribono shel olam, harbe gzerot gazarti al atzmi, yoter mima shegazarta alai v'kiyamtim. Basically, there's going to be a whole now part about like Torah Shebal Peh, like Gezerot Drabanan and stuff like that, coming off of this, because they're saying that basically what we're trying to say to God, because it's talking about old versus new, that they're saying the new are like Hashem, like we put on ourselves, even like you gave us so many mitzvot, and we even added like many more new ones, and we kept them all. Maybe mute. Somebody's talking. I thought it was question. Amar le Rav Chisda lahumi drabanan dehava kamisader. Aggadata kameh. So Rav Chisda asked a certain rabbi who is like teaching aggadatas before him, Nish mi'alach hadashim gam yisheni mahu. Like, did anybody teach you like how to explain this pasuk that we just were talking about the new and the old, whatever? Amarle, so this rabbi who was teaching aggadatas answered, Elu mitzvot kalot ve'elu mitzvot chamurot. He explains the old and the new as referring to like sort of like light mitzvot and more stringent ones, whether that's how serious the punishment is or whatever it is. It's not entirely clear, but you're going to see he's going to attack it now anyway. Amar Leis, Rav Chisda says to him, now what was the Torah given at like in many different stages that you could refer to? Like, again, the pasuk talked about old versus new. This rabbi explained it as talking about like mitzvot kalot and mitzvot chamurot, like different types of mitzvot. And Rav Chisda is saying that implies that some are older and some are newer, but like it wasn't given in stages. The whole Torah was given at the same time. Ela halalu midivrei Torah, v'halalu midivrei. Oh, sorry, that was his challenge, was the pamim. What was it given in different stages that you could refer to some as old and some as new? So he rejects that, and so he says, Ela halalu midivrei Torah v'halalu midivrei sovrim. So that's why he goes back to sort of the first explanation about the old versus new. Is the old ones are the Torah ones, and the new ones are divrei sofrim, the like sort of extra mitzvot that the rabbis added. Those are newer. And once they're talking about mitzvot drabanan, they now sort of talk about the greatness of keeping mitzvot drabanan in general. Darash Rava. My dichtiv, what's the meaning of this pasuk? V'yoter mehema bini hizaher asot svarim harbe. More than even these, my son, like be careful about making a lot of books. So he explains that as bini hizaher b'divrei sofrim yoter midivrei Torah. This like be careful about making many books, whatever it is be super careful about like drabanans even more than divrei Torah. She divrei Torah yesh behen aseh v'lo ta'aseh. Whatever that Torah has, like, you know, assays and lot assays, they seem to explain this as like things that have varying degrees of punishment. The divrei sofrim, kol ha'over divrei sofrim chayav mita. Again, I don't know if that's true, but they seem to be saying that like violating any midrabanan by definition always, like there's no such thing as like a light punishment for a drabanan. Like you're going to be chayav mita if you violate drabanan, so like be super careful about it. Shema tomar. This actually I thought was great. Like I know, like my students often say this, right? That if really there's something to them, like, oh yeah, Drabanans are so important. Like you might think if they're so important, God would have put them in his Torah directly. So that you don't say that, the Torah says, then again, there's like no limit, meaning yes, they're super important, but there was just no way to write them all down because in Kate's like sort of Torah is endless. So yes, they are super important and still they're not written down because like there would just be no end. And then the pasuk continues. This is the end of that pasuk. V'lahag harbe yigiat basar. That if you like study a lot, it sort of is like, you know, the hard work of the flesh. Amar Rav Papa Berei de Rav Acha bar Ada Mishmei de Rav Acha bar Ula. Find all these rabbis saying their names. Lamet shakol mal'ig. That mal'ig is from the lahag. Hamal'ig al divrei chachamim nidon bitzor rotachat. That anybody who mocks the words of chachamim is going to be judged in burning excrement. But Rava attacks this and says, "Meketiv la'ag." Again, if you notice, the pasuk was vilahag with the hey, harbe yat basar, and they darshan that hamal'ig, like anybody who mocks, whatever. So he's saying, does it say la'ag with an ayin? La'ag ketiv, it says it with a hey. Ella rather, kol ha'hogeh behen to'im tam basar. He actually explains it almost the exact opposite. It's not talking about somebody mocking and their punishment. It's talking about dafka, somebody who like studies them a lot and discusses them a lot. Kol ha'ogeh, like a good thing. He's going to be rewarded with getting to taste the taste of meat. So whatever, just two opposite explanations of that pasuk. Now comes kind of an interesting story. Sort of again, it's all about the importance of Torah Peh. Yes, sorry, is there a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, this is like verifying the importance of Torah She'Ba'al Peh, because our whole Masechet, Eruvin, is the Rabbanan, not Mitoraita.
Very nice. That's actually
There's
very
a hint there.
Explain why they're spending so much time on very nice. That's very nice, right? On what, like, yeah, they needed this Masechet Dafka to like emphasize the importance of Drabanans. Very nice.
So I actually just want to add a point to that from what I studied when I was preparing my daf. That it's machloket Rabbi Akiva Rabbanan about if Eruvin is the tchum is Rabbanan or Daraisa. So Rabbi Akiva says it's Daraisa, and we follow Rabbanan that says it's Rabbanan. But then there's the two tchumen. There's a tchum of Apayim Mama, and then there's the tchum of Yud Bet Meal, which is a machloket Rishonim if it's Daraisa or Rabbanan. The Rambam says it's Doraisa, the Ramban says it's Rabbanan, and everybody has soldiers on their side. So it's interesting that it's not simple if it's a Doraisa or Rabbanan, but it's also Karuk Machloket. Okay.
Got it. Thank you. Anyway, so with that, we'll see this interesting story about Rabbi Akiva. Tanu Rabbanan, Ma'aseh Rabbi Akiva. So when he was in jail, I'm guessing this is before the incident when he got, raked with the iron, whatever that killed him. Vaya Rabbi Yehoshua Hagarsi Misharto, and somehow it seems that the jailers actually allowed him to have like one of his students sort of be the one who would bring him the food and water, even though it's going to be clear from the story that like the jailers gave the specific certain amounts, but apparently they let this particular rabbi be the one to bring it to him. So again, every day, I guess the jailers would give this Rabbi Yehoshua Hagarsi the specific amount of water that he was allowed to have. But one day, the guard saw how much water this Rabbi Yehoshua was bringing him. Amarlo, and he said, whoa, like you're sneaking in way too much water to Rabbi Akiva. Like he basically got suspicious. Maybe you're using the water to like soften the ground so you can like try to like dig your way out and escape. So he made Rabbi Yehoshua pour out half the water and only brought to Rabbi Akiva half the amount. So when Rabbi Akiva saw like how little water he was bringing him, he said like, Yehoshua, like, don't you know I'm old and like I need all that water, like my life is dependent on it, sort of like how can you bring me so little water? But Rabbi Yehoshua explained like the whole thing that had happened, where like it wasn't my fault, the jailer made me pour half of it out. Amarlo, and here's where we'll see the connection to everything we've been saying. Amarlo, tain li mayim she'etol yadai. Okay, give me the little bit of water you had. Since I have to choose between drinking and doing netilat yadayim, I'll do netilat yadayim, and I just won't drink at all today. Amarlo, lishtot ein magi'in litol yadecha magi'in, and so Rabbi Yehoshua says back, like it's not even enough for you to have like had enough for a drink. If you drink all of it, it's going to be enough for like netilas yadayim too. Amarlo, and Rabbi Akiva says back, ma'aseh, like what do you want me to do? Shachayavim alehen mita. Exactly, that's where the connection is to what we were saying, that like even though Netilat Yadayim before bread is only drabanan, he was still saying like it's chayiv mita tanat. And so he says, "Mutav amut mitat atzmi velo e'avor al dat chaverai." Better I should like die almost like at my own hands, sort of by like using this water for Netilat Yadayim and not drinking, then that basically I should like violate, divrei chachamim and be chayiv mita, sort of at the hands of God. And what's interesting is that I was actually very happy to hear this in the recording, because I was like, wait, really? Like, well, I'll finish it. Basically, they're going to praise him. And I would have thought, wait, this is good. Like he shouldn't sacrifice his life for a drabanan. So apparently a lot of the Rishonim and Achronim discuss it and have all different answers. Is it only because he was such a tzaddik, he's unique, and right, you and I shouldn't do that? Or I forgot what the other answers that they gave, whatever. They were all different answers. Honestly, the answers, none of them were at least so satisfying to me, but I was at least happy to hear on the recording that yes, all the Rishonim are bothered by this also, about like, this is not one of the 3 Yarad Val Yavors, but because they actually praise him. So Amru, they end up saying, Lo ta'am klum ache vilo mayim v'natal yadav. Again, he wouldn't eat anything until they brought him the water, and he did Netilat Yadayim. Kishashambu chachamim hadavar, when the rabbis heard, Amru, they said, Biziknu to kach v'yalduto al chad kama v'kama. Wow, like this is so amazing. Even in his, when he was older, he was so, willing to sacrifice and starve himself and whatever it is for just Netilat Yadayim. How much more so when he was young, which of course is interesting because when he was young, he wasn't from. But they also said in the recording, Rabbi Leibowitz explained that maybe that was the point, but like, wow, chaval, he wasn't from. Can you imagine what he would have been like, in his youth? And again, if this is how he was in jail, wow, like how much even more amazing he would have been outside of jail. And that's the story, that we're still in aggadata, but that's the end of the Rabbi Akiva story. Okay, so now they say, Amar, right, they're still talking about the Netilat Yadayim. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel, B'sha'ah she'tikein Shlomo, oh, right, this is actually connecting back to what you just said. B'sha'ah she'tikein Shlomo Eruvin Netilat Yadayim, Yatzta bat kol va'amra. So basically, that they're sort of saying that Shlomo, though, then I saw that the notes sort of said that Shlomo only was taking certain elements. The full enactments were a little bit later. But either way, they're saying that Shlomo enacted both the laws of Eruv and the laws of Netilat Yadayim. And a bat kol came out and said, that again, sort of, wow, like my son, your heart is so wise, and my heart is rejoicing so much about your wisdom and all the great enactments that you're making. The Omer, again, sort of like be smart, and you're making me so happy, and I'll answer something anybody who disgraces me. I don't know why then it talks about disgracing, but either way, they're sort of praising Shlomo for enacting these laws of Eruv and Netilat Yadayim. And now they darshan some from Shir Hashirim. Darash Rava, my dichtiv, lechadodi, famous, right? Lechadodi netei asadeh nalina bakfarim. Come, my beloved, we'll go out to the field and we'll sleep in the villages. Nashkima lakramim nir'eim parcha hagefen pitach hasmadar henetu harimonim sham eteneto dailach. Let's get up early to the vineyards, and we'll see if the vine is giving forth its flowers, and if the grape blossom has opened, and if the rimonim are blossoming, and there I'm going to give my love to you. All that is the pasuk from Shir Hashirim. So now Rav is going to explain it phrase by phrase. Again, come, my beloved, will go out to the field. Amra Knesset Yisrael lefnei Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel olam, al tidineni ki yoshvei kramim. Right, so Bnei Yisrael say to God, don't judge us like people who sit in the cities. Sheyesh ben gazel va'arayot u'shvat shav u'shvat sheker. Somehow they seem to assume that people in cities are like just totally immoral and do all these terrible things. Instead, neitzei hasadeh, right, let's instead go out to the field. Bovar acha talmidei chachamim shoskim b'Torah mitoch hadchak. And basically, meaning don't judge us in the cities where people are sort of immoral. Rather, let's go out to the field, and you'll see all these like Talmidei Chachamim who are like studying Torah, even though they're like so poor and it's like such dire circumstances, and even so they're so committed to learning. Nalina bakfarim, right, would seem to mean let's sleep in the villages. Al tikrei bakfarim ela bakofrim, right? So don't read it as the villagers, but instead sort of among those who like don't believe. Bo baracha otam shishpat lehen tova. Come and I'll those people who you like did give all this wealth and great stuff to. Vein kafru bacha, like, and even so, like they're still kofrim. Nashkima lakramim. let us go early to the vineyards. Elu batei knesiot ubatei midrashot. Nira im parcha geffen. We'll see if the geffen has flowered. Elu ba'alei mikra, again, is people who study Torah. Pitach hasmadar, if the grape blossom has opened. Elu ba'alei mishnah. Hinetu harimonim, if the pomegranates are in bloom. Elu ba'alei gemara. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure why each fruit is representative of the thing that it is, but either way. Sham etain et dodailach, and there I'm going to give my love to you. I'll show you basically all my glory, my greatness, like how great my sons and my daughters are, and it's sort of all about like people are sort of studying Torah, but somehow that's better in the field where people are, I guess, more moral, and also where you see how devoted they are to Torah, that they're studying even in poverty. And then more about Shlomo, since again we had said that Shlomo made Eruv and Nitilat Yadayim. Amrav Hamnuna, Mai Dichti, Vaydiber Shloshet Alafim Mashal, Vayhi Shiro Chamisha Alaf. Again, that, Shlomo did 3,000, Mishalim and whatever, 1,005 songs. Milamed Shamar Shlomo al Kol Davar Davar Shel Torah Shloshet Alafim Mashal, that on every single sort of like, piece of Torah, he was able to give, 3,000 mashals. Al Kol Davar Davar Shel Sofrim Chamisha Ve'elef Tamim, and for every drabanan, he was able to give 1,005 reasons. Darash Rava Mai Dichtiv. ויותר שהיה קהלת חכם עוד לימד דעת את העם ואיזן וחיכר תיקין משלים הרבה, that besides for being so smart, Kohelet also taught like wisdom to the people, and he listened, and he arranged all these mishalim and all these things that he did. So again, they're going to go phrase by phrase and explain it. Limei da'at et ha'am, the fact that he taught like wisdom to the people. The aggamatra b'simanei ta'amim, that basically this seems to be referring to like that he darshaned even the Tamei HaMikra. And he used again mishalim, analogies, things like that, things domeh to help understand it. And the fact that he listened and sought out and organized a lot of mishalim. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, or Rabbi Eliezer actually. So Ula said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, in the beginning, Torah was like a basket without handles. This itself is like actually, like it's funny that Ula is sort of making a mashal, even as we describe Shlomo's mishalim. Like initially Torah was like a basket without handles. And sort of Shlomo came and like made handles for it. He made it like something that we could use and understand better and use to carry and whatever. And then should I just, whatever, I can start this last piece, but I will probably have to start, whatever, Kfutzatav Tatalim, again, then they also from Shir Shirim, about, the curly hair. Amrav Chista Amar Mar Ukva, Milamnei Chiyesh Lidrosh Al Kol Kotz Vakotz Tilei Tilim Shalalachot. This, right, teaches us that from every single, like, dot and even, crown or every point or every whatever in the Torah, you can learn, like, heaps and heaps and curls of laws, like.
Which really brings us back to Rabbi Akiva and Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yes.
Shabbat and Torah Sheba'al Peh.
Yes, I was thinking that, right? The famous story with him learning all.
We went up to Har Sinai.
Yes, very nice. Shchoro ko raven, and the rest of the pasuk then continues, black as a raven. B'mi atamot'an, basically like with whom will you find them, meaning who are you going to be able to learn on such high level with. B'mi shemashkim ma'ariv alein lebeit hamidrash, basically whoever comes early and stays late in sort of the Beit Midrash, that's who you will be able to learn a lot from. So yeah, should I do it? Whatever. There's just two more like interpretations of that pasuk. Maybe I should just do it because then it's going to go on to a next pasuk. I'll just finish this pasuk where it says, Rabba Amar b'mishmashchir panav aleim ka'orev, like the person who you're going to be able to learn a lot from is the person who works so hard that like his face even gets all black, like a raven's, I guess, because maybe he's not showering because he's studying so hard. I don't know. And then Rava Amar, again, it's a little sad, but basically they're sort of saying, who are you going to be able to like learn a lot from? Somebody who like makes himself like cruel, like a raven to his children. I don't know why we think that you could learn so much from him, but just like basically this rabbi, when he was on his way to sort of to learn, Amra le Davitu, and his wife said, who's sort of like, well, what am I going to do to like feed your children? Amrala, like what, there's no more like whatever vegetables growing, like sort of go out to the field and you're pick vegetables. Again, it makes me a little sad that they're sort of praising this as like, that's the guy who's going to be the real Talmid Chacham, is sort of the guy who doesn't take care of feeding his children. But anyway, that's whatever. We'll stop here and I will let whoever does tomorrow's continue with the aggadata.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
Have a good day. Shabbat tov.
Good day.
Shavua tov.
Shavua tov, everybody.